Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back today and we're here to talk about lots of new things from the world of DC. Of course, you see the graphic on screen if you are watching, not listening. I don't know, you might be listening to this just on YouTube. Anyway, I'm sidetracking myself. The point is, if you're looking at that graphic, you are seeing some information that we're diving into because is it possible? Is it possible that Channing Tatum, fresh off of his if you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm sorry, but Channing Tatum, fresh off of his cameo, to finally play his dream character of Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine, he's now going to be moving over to DC to play Hal Jordan? Is that possible? Is he going to be a Green Lantern? Channing Tatum? I mean, we're going to talk about that. We're also going to dive into what the crew got after production wrapped on Superman, the crew gifts, and it was something very special that we're gonna look into and kind of maybe see what that's inferring. Are we looking ahead to maybe even Justice League potentially? I don't know. I don't know. There's something about the crew gift that intrigues me. And we have, of course, a look ahead to Batman Cape Crusader. If you are watching this on a Wednesday, you are watching us live, then you know that tomorrow is August 1st. And on August 1st, we have the latest Batman animated series, Batman Cape Crusader, dropping on Amazon Prime. And from what I understand, it's going to be all the episodes will drop at once, so you can binge them all the way through. And so we're going to look ahead to that. There was a sneak peek release at Comic-Con. There was an intro put out there on the internet. So if you want to know what the intro looks like, it's we're going to analyze it. We're going to talk about like how good it is. Does it match up to the animated series? We're going to dive into the sneak peek. Maybe what does that tell us about the tone and the feel of the show, and of course what our expectations are of the show. We do have some reviews out there in the world. We of course also have some fans talking about it already who have gotten a chance to see it a little bit early. So we're going to get into all of that, and then of course your fan comments, and we'll answer your questions and fan theories along the way. So do that and so much more. As always with me, I've got of course John. How are you doing today?
A lot on our plate, but yeah, it's definitely a whole array of stuff. We got Superman, you got Batman, you got Green Lantern, so definitely interesting. And let's head right
Yeah.
into it because I have a lot to say
Yeah.
on this one.
Hell yeah, we're gonna step right into it, as you said, and let's talk about Lanterns. It's a show that has been officially greenlit over at HBO. It's an HBO original for Max, which the branding, I don't know if I like it any more or less than what they were doing in the past. I feel like it's just semantics at this point because they're all the same company, whatever. But that's besides the point. The show Lanterns is coming our way. It's going to be one of the first series in the new DCU. It's meant to focus on Hal Jordan and John Stewart, the two most popular Lanterns, and they're going to be essentially investigating a murder in the American heartland. That's what the synopsis says. If you already know what this series is about, generally you have read that synopsis. But the news today is, and it comes from an outlet that they're the ones who broke the story, or broke, or we're talking about how Joe Duenya confirmed to one of their sources at Comic-Con, or one of the Comic-Cons, I don't even know if it was San Diego Comic-Con, that, hey, Kumail Nanjiani is going to be playing Booster Gold, and he's so excited. And it was one of those like, oh, trust me, bro, I talked to Jolo, bro. He said it, it's going to be Kumail Nanjiani. It's going to be so good, bro. Just trust me, bro. Booster Gold is Kumail Nanjiani, bro. I can't wait to be in his show, bro. Like, I was like, are you... Like, it was literally the
There
most
was
trust me,
nothing.
bro report I have ever seen.
Yeah,
Because I
a
kept
lot of
clicking through
Nexus Point news comes off as
yeah,
"Trust me, bro," and
trust
so
me,
that's
bro.
saying get out that salt lick for this grain of
Yeah,
salt we're about to give you right now. So who
exactly.
knows?
So
Uh,
now,
this is what we have.
this exactly. I mean, look, comicbookmovie.com is where you found this story and you sent it
Yeah.
my way, and I was like, you know what? Let's dive into this. And as soon as I kind of dove a little further beyond the headline, I saw exactly that same name. It was like, hey, by the way, Nexus Point News is reporting. Now, here's the thing. Some of this might be true. There may be some truth to it, right? So, John, can you just walk us through a little bit of what this article is talking about? Just some of the basic details, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more
Yeah.
about like our thoughts on just how true any of this might be.
Yeah. So it does mention the various attempts at a Green Lantern project since the failed Ryan Reynolds movie from 2011. How there was going to be a movie called Green Lantern Corps that was part of the original DCEU slate back in like 2014, 2015, I think, where half of those movies just never even got made. And then there was the TV show that was going to be part of the Arrowverse. It would have had lesser known Green Lanterns, like well, I wouldn't say lesser known, but like Hal Jordan and John Stewart being the biggest ones. Not those, maybe because they were supposed to be in the Green Lantern Corps movie. So like, okay, you can't use those guys, but you can use these guys. And I believe Alan Scott and Guy Gardner were the ones that were officially cast. I think Jeremy something was supposed to be Alan Scott, and then Finn Wittrock, who is a little bit more famous. He was in Unbroken, I think, that movie, and then he's been in a bunch of stuff. He's a good actor, but he was supposed to be Guy Gardner, I believe. And then they were set to introduce other Green Lanterns like Simon Baz and Jessica
Right.
Cruz.
Yeah, because I think the
So
focus ultimately was they wanted to save Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart mostly for the movies and then bring all these other alternate, versions
right,
in the TV
yeah,
show. And this was the DCEU iteration, of course. This is pre-DCU. And it
yeah.
went from being a Green Lantern Corps movie to a Green Lantern Corps TV show.
No, it
And
was
then
two
what happened?
separate ones.
Was
Like,
it two separate things?
Green Lantern
Oh,
Corps was like trying to be developed by David S. Goyer. I don't know if he
okay.
was writing or directing it or both, but he was trying to develop that.
Yeah, of course. And he's the one
He might
who
have
wrote
said
Man of Steel. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he might have said at one point like, oh, we tried to make it a show or
Yeah.
something, but then there was a totally separate one that was Greg Berlanti, and I think Jeff Johns was on it. I mean, anything Green Lantern, I assume Jeff Johns eventually gets his fucking fingers in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was supposed to be for the Arrowverse, but then it just got canceled, and then I think Finn Wittrock was talking about it in an
Didn't
interview for like
they
another
even cast
movie.
a couple of people? I
Yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah,
that
yeah.
the
No, yeah.
Lanterns team, yeah.
Whitrock and I forget who was Alan Sky. I'll look up the name, but
Yeah, it
Simon
was
Baz and
so
Jessica Cruz were mentioned, but they were not cast.
right,
Um,
but I mean, but look, ultimately,
yeah,
like, that show got retooled,
and
right?
then
Because
yeah, eventually it got
they, like
redone.
they literally, let everybody go behind the camera and in front of the camera and said, "We're gonna start over, and we're gonna make this work
Hmm.
with the new DCU." And, of course, since the announcement at, that whole DCU event, I think it's been now almost 2 years ago, where James Gunn and Peter Safran, brought out what Chapter 1, Part 1 Gods and Monsters is gonna look like. Lanterns was one of those projects. It was announced as a TV series, and here we are. What is it now? A year and a half later,
Hmm.
and we have a green light. We have a writers' room, but we don't really know who's gonna be playing these iconic characters. At least until now, and even, well, take it with a grain of salt. But this article, what they do point out here is that they have some people in mind over at DC, and they have a different approach for who they want to cast for what will be an older Hal Jordan, more of a veteran in his 40s, and a younger
Hmm.
John Stewart, more in his 30s, and they will of course both be Lanterns. Now, the piece of news I want to start with, and again, grain of salt, how true this is, we don't know yet, but they mention in this article, according to Nexus Point News, again, trust me, bro, we talked to them, bro. That in the TV show is going to start filming in January 2025 all the way till June of 2025. I mean, the timeline potentially could be true. I think in terms of the amount of time it will take for them to shoot this thing, yes, that certainly seems like it would be possible that it would take them, that period of time. And given that it's just gotten a green light now, they have to do the casting process, and they'll have
Hmm.
to like onboard like episodic directors and blah 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 blah. All the people, all the talent that needs
Yep.
to come in beyond just the writers' room and the showrunner that are already on board, which we can dive into that as well, of course, who those are. But we have talked about it before on the channel, so we will keep that to a minimum because let's get into the new information here. But
Yeah.
if you add up all the details, it would make sense. This could be an educated guess. If it is not news, then it is at least a good educated guess. Now, as far as the implication of if they're filming early 2025 into the summer of next 2025, that being next year, I imagine this series is going to require a lot of VFX work, and therefore we're most likely not seeing it until 2026. Do you think this
Yes.
timeline that's being suggested here is A, realistic,
Mm.
and then B, true?
I think January 2025 might be pushing it a little bit. I think they would probably start filming in spring.
Mhm.
and then they'll go into the summer, if I were to guess, in 2025. Because I mean, it is greenlit and they are still kind of writing it, so I would assume like casting is kind of happening now. Um, so if I were to, I think this is more like not like a, I don't even think it's like a trust me, bro kind of thing, or even
Mhm.
like definitive news, or even either of those. I think this is kind of like just a guesstimation of like
Yeah.
when we'll get it. It mentions how it was supposed to shoot in the UK with that new big fucking thing that
Which
DC was
but
building,
no, but honestly, those
and
new
then
that new studio space, all the sound stages that Warner Brothers leaves in the UK, those aren't set to come online for a while.
yeah,
It's not like they're gonna
yeah,
be ready to go
exactly.
for January 2025.
So
Um, and,
that's why
they
they
have a
said
lot of
Atlanta.
facilities there.
So
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I mean, that in and of itself could be, I would take that and say, okay, fine. Does that matter so much? I don't really know. We're not going to really notice the difference, I'm sure, because the sets they're building are not going to look like one is in Atlanta and one is in the UK.
mhm.
That's more of a logistics thing. It's good to know, like, but and of course, Superman shot a lot in Atlanta before they went to Cleveland and then Cincinnati, and then, of course, before they went to Atlanta, they were filming abroad in Norway. So we've already had a DCU project spend quite a bit of time in Atlanta. Now there is, of course, this other piece here where they're quoting the Nexus Point news article about how the role of Hal Jordan is intended to go to a noteworthy name. So they want an A-lister, in other words, to play Hal
Yeah,
Jordan. It's 40, somewhat, it's a more veteran Lantern in their 40s, and
right,
and of course the priority is to then cast him and then cast John Stewart to see if the chemistry matches up. Now the article sort of
right.
continues to say that they have certain names in mind. It's not decided, but they're leaning in certain directions. And it's quoted that Channing Tatum may be somewhere near the top of DC Studios' wish list. So
Which
um
isn't which is a choice. I don't know if
you
it's a
know
good one or a bad one yet. I think he's a pretty decent actor, but I think again he would fit more Guy Gardner. I feel like it's funny because a lot of people have joked that Ryan Reynolds acted more like Guy Gardner and he's playing Hal Jordan, yet
right.
in yet Nathan Fillion has played Hal and is better suited for Hal Jordan, yet he's playing Guy Gardner in live action. So I found that to be a very
Right.
kind of funny
It's
thing that a lot of people mention. So I think he would be
Yeah.
better as Guy Gardner because he's better. Like I think he's better as a funny guy, and Hal Jordan
Hmm.
is like kind of can be like kind of funny, but like not like
Hmm.
Guy Gardner. He definitely has like more of a Guy Gardner vibe. I think Channing Tatum, and I think he would be really good with that. So I don't
Right.
think he would be the best choice for Hal Jordan. I would want someone who's like more can do like a little bit more, like because depending on when Hal Jordan is, like he has a little bit of the ego
Yeah.
later on, and then because that kind of leads to him becoming Parallax. I don't know if they're gonna do that soon, but I'm just saying. But he's also kind of like this kind of has a bit of douchiness, but like not totally. Again, not Guy Gardner levels. He has like a little bit of the, the smarts. He has a little bit. He's very well-rounded character. So, but he can like accentuate certain character strengths and flaws at certain points, and as well as someone who has to be very confident. I feel like a very confident individual because the whole thing is like he's supposed to be the greatest Green Lantern. He's supposed to be, like the even though Daredevil really has this title, the man without fear, like that was supposed to be like what Green Lantern was when he was introduced, because at that point, Green Lanterns were not supposed to have fear at all. And then they realized, oh wait, that's fucking
Right.
unrealistic and makes no sense. So they had the ability to overcome fear like very easily through like willpower. But like that was like supposed to be with Hal Jordan. So and I'm not saying Channing Tatum like can't do it. Like if he would do it, I think he would
I mean,
rock
if
it.
you put some
But in
facial
terms of,
hair on him, I can kind of
I
see
think
it.
he's a good actor. But
I
it just the thing
he
is,
Yeah.
the things I've liked him more are like the Jump Street movies where he's really
Mhm.
funny. So I
Django. Yeah.
think that is better suited him. But if he was cast as Hal Jordan, I would be like, okay, I'm not against it, but I want to see what he can do with it. And I think could he do it? probably, but I think he finally got his chance to play Gambit. I don't know if that's probably not gonna happen ever again. He got his chance. He finally did it. Good for him. That was like his biggest dream because he was a huge, he is a huge Gambit fan, and he's like from his neck of the woods, like Gambit is in the comics. So,
Yeah.
um, it's unlikely unless Deadpool and Wolverine's probably gonna fucking make $2 billion at this point, and they're like, you know what?
Yeah.
Kevin Feige, like, you know what? You played him once, but like, we can use you again. They're not gonna fucking like get rid of Hugh Jackman anytime soon. Kevin Feige said that
Well, I mean,
already.
you're right, but
So
that's probably because they're talking when they say that all of those comments. I take that as Avengers 6. All of that goes away after
yeah,
that.
but
You know,
again,
but obviously Avengers
I
6
don't
isn't
trust
coming out
them.
tomorrow, so there's time to come. Yeah, I get it, but like it's I have a feeling that if DC walked up to Channing Tatum or like James Gunn called him up, and they might, for all we know, if you go by this article that we were talking about earlier, or we still are, I guess, they might have had conversations if he's at the top of the wish list. Um,
Right.
I don't think Channing Tatum says no, right? Like you're coming in to play Hal
Yeah.
Jordan, the greatest Green Lantern, somebody who's clearly not just gonna be on the TV show. Like that character will make its move over to the movies, and certainly when they
Yeah.
get to the Justice League films. So,
Most definitely.
it would be probably the highest profile role of his career. Right? Like I think so he would still look at it as an upwards trajectory, sort of a move.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it. I mean, we had Jay Kelly say that, yeah, absolutely, he can do it, and Lenny is like, no, it does not fit. But my question to you then becomes, this article points out, hey, maybe that means Glenn Powell's kind of out of this running, and I'm like, okay, so maybe if Channing Tatum is at the
Yeah.
top of the list, does that really take Glenn Powell out of the picture? I don't know.
Kind
Like,
of, because they
does it have
want.
to be a zero-sum game?
I feel like they want mid to late 40s Hal Jordan, and Glenn Powell's 35. Unless they're wanting to put Glenn Powell in blackface and making him Jon Stewart, I don't think that will be the case. So I think, and Glenn Powell has already said he's like, I'm never doing Marvel, but he never said I'm never doing DC. So that's definitely an option open, and I think there are other characters I think
Yeah.
he would fit with. Glenn Powell, I think,
I mean, of
would be
course, and he
better.
follows James Gunn and Andy Muschietti on
Yeah,
social media.
whether
So
it's Batman, whether it's characters to actually suit his sensibilities like Green
which
Arrow and Booster
this
Gold,
Batman
but
has a teenage kid, like I'm like, I don't know if that's a good character. It seems like every character he's been associated with, the outside of maybe Booster Gold, they're all sort of, I don't know if he fits the age profile that they're looking for. Like Channing Tatum, I think you can show him a grizzled, and I'll believe that Channing Tatum
yeah,
is like, like, but Glenn Powell just looks like he's too young. Like this hair, you take this face, even the hair, and you just put a Green Lantern suit on him instead of
kind of looks
whatever
like John
was
Cena
Peabody.
here a little bit.
A little bit, but I'm just saying, like, you can see that, right? Channing Tatum could certainly not just pull off the look. He, as an actor, has grown over time. I mean, he's not quite a
Oh yeah,
thespian necessarily, but he has the ability to pull off a role where he's got some heavy lifting to do. Plus, in a show
yeah,
like this where you're going to bring in somebody to kind of play off of him, and for him to play off of it, Jon Stewart, you have a little bit of leeway to maybe not necessarily go out and cast somebody who has to be the best of the best of the best. Oh, Jensen Ackles would, yeah, that could work too. I mean, it
might
could
be a little
work.
bit too gritty, but I think he could probably
It's
make it work.
like, okay,
You know who Jensen Ackles would be really good for? I think he would be
yeah,
like a really good Punisher. Like I think he would be better as like a street hero, whether it be DC or Marvel,
right,
just like a street level hero. I don't think he can do like the big sort of, because I know he's Soldier Boy, who's
yeah,
asshole Captain America. That's like the whole shtick of that character. Um, and that's what he like can do. But I feel like he's just a very gritty sort of guy. Like I know he isn't the character he plays. I know he can be like silly, but like in terms of like the characters he plays, he usually plays like very like down, like gritty, like blue collar guys. So I feel like he would fit more with like a Punisher or like a Moon Knight or something like that, rather than someone like Hal Jordan or Batman or something like that. Even then, I think he could
yeah.
do Batman better than Hal Jordan, but that's just my opinion.
Right. Well, here's a wild suggestion.
Mm.
I think he maybe is like 5 or 10 years past the point where this would work, and I don't even know if he would have an interest in being a part of a franchise at this part of his career, um, because he only doesn't need the fame or the fortune like maybe
No.
RDJ does. Um, Brad Pitt, I think, could have made for a good Hal Jordan. You know,
Yeah.
because he not only has the gravitas, and he can he walks into the room and he is playing Hal Jordan. He's got the costume on, he's got the ring. You buy it. Like, I think
Oh
Brad.
yeah.
I mean, not only that, but it's fucking Brad Pitt. Like, you get Brad Pitt to join a superhero movie. I mean, you've brought in probably the biggest star of his generation, plus somebody who's still making bank, and obviously still doing very well for
Yeah.
himself. Um,
I still stand by. I feel like he could have been like a good like Hal Jordan like the '90s. Like Rat was like at the where he was like at the top of his game, like maybe like right after Seven. I think he could
mhm.
have been like a really good Hal Jordan, but easily the Hal Jordan of the '80s would have been Tom Cruise. He like literally Top
Yeah,
Gun. That's just Hal Jordan. Like that's
that's just Hal Jordan.
literally
Right.
just Hal Jordan.
No,
So I just want to mention that because I did a fan casting of like what if the
yeah,
Justice League came out in the '80s.
yeah.
And Tom Cruise was my I'm like, that would have just been so
That would
fun.
have.
Fuck
Yeah.
Iron Man. He would have been perfect as Green Lantern. Easily.
By the way, there's a question from Jay. Actually, before we get to that question, Jay, and look, Lenny, I think it could work. I'm saying it's an out there, it's choice. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's one that most people will think of. I don't even know if Brad Pitt would have an interest, but I just think you don't need because he's meant to be this guy in his 40s, more of a veteran, and most of these. I mean, look, freaking Nathan Fillion is in his 40s, or I don't know how old he is, but he must be at least in his 40s.
He's in his early
Um,
50s at this point.
Oh, is he? Oh my god. So like, and he's playing a version of Lantern in Superman. And he was, he's been I'm sure doing at least a bit of his own stunts. And besides, you don't need to be able to do your own stunts these days in superhero movies, right? Like, that's what we have stuntmen
Yeah,
for.
he's 53 specifically.
And yeah, and then dude, you look at Brad Pitt in Bullet Train. I'm like, he can still do action. He can be a part of a friend. Dude, I'm just saying, you want to put it on a marquee, Brad Pitt, and I mean, and all of a sudden you've got an HBO original that's headlined by Brad Pitt, and that the profile of the show goes up so much, and then he's gonna get into the movies. I mean, who you put
He
opposite him
is
at that
60
point is
though,
just
so I don't know if he was
dude,
franchise
okay,
material.
I know he's older than what they're necessarily looking for, but if you walk by Brad Pitt on the street, would you say he's 60? I mean, I'm just saying.
I could
Like, if you
maybe
walk
say
by
like,
Halle
oh, maybe
Berry
he's like
on the streets, you wouldn't.
55,
Yeah,
but like
it's like
not like, oh
some
yeah,
people
he's
just age
40.
well.
It's not like Samuel L. Jackson where it's like, oh yeah, he could be 40 even though he's like 75 now. So, it's not like a black don't crack situation. Brad Pitt, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, fucking everyone was bitching and complaining that, oh, Chris Pine's in his 40s. That dude looks like he's in his 70s now. So
That's just the way he likes to dress. I'm just
yeah,
but
he's just rocking Big Lebowski shit at this point. He's like, I don't give a
exactly.
fuck. But like,
I
if you
mean, okay.
fucking cut his hair, you dye his hair, he'll look 40. I still think Chris Pine or John Krasinski, I think, would be a really good Hal Jordan with who they're looking for. And then, yeah, I think like those guys would be like really good. I feel like John
Just look at
Krasinski
this.
can bring
Like,
a bit of that ego, but like kind of that down to earth energy.
just I mean, just look at the
He looks like he's like at least in his late 50s. Like, okay, maybe not 60, but he looks
I'm
like
just
57 there.
But okay, but the thing is, like, yeah, they're looking for somebody in his 40s, but that isn't something that James Gunn outright said. They could make an adjustment. They can age him up a little bit more. It's not like it's so crucial to the idea. He can pull it off. I mean, have you seen the trailers for that new movie where he's reuniting with George Clooney? I'm like, I can see it. I know we're not gonna. Okay, now I'm getting really carried away. I'm like, what if George Clooney came in as Batman while we were at it, and then we just had,
He
like Hal
said
Jordan show up?
he literally said not all the drugs in the world can get me back as Batman. He's like Bruce Wayne,
But
sure.
he still showed up in the
Batman,
Flash.
fuck
I'm
no.
just saying.
No, he
He
said
was
he said Batman specifically. Like Bruce Wayne, like
okay.
okay, fine. But like he's like, I will never be back as Batman. Nothing will ever get me back into that fucking bat suit. No way.
Okay.
No
Well,
fucking way.
I'm just saying if it would be quite the coup if they were to play. It's out there. I admit it. Okay, so let's get back to the question that Jay had. Jay, you were asking about who would you cast as opposite Tatum as Stewart if this were to be true? So essentially, you're asking us who would you cast for Jon Stewart to play opposite Channing Tatum? John, I'll start with you. Who would you cast to kind of fit together with Channing Tatum's Hal Jordan as a version of Jon Stewart?
The one name that always is coming to mind who I think deserves a better chance at a franchise should be John Boyega. Like, he was totally butt fucked by Disney with Star Wars. That dude needs another chance at a franchise because he's a really good actor and he deserves so much more than, oh yeah, you're gonna be a stormtrooper Jedi only to be like a guy screaming Rey over and over again in the last movie and just being, they fly now. That guy, you're immortalized as that for the rest of your life. Congratulations. Give this man another franchise. He needs to show off, like, all because China hates black people, we couldn't fucking get this guy as a Jedi. So get him in a Green Lantern suit. Fuck it. Have that. He's right around that age that they want. Late 20s to early 30s, I think. If you're pushing the age, I think Michael B. Jordan could be good. I know he's Killmonger. I don't know if he has still has a contract with them with Marvel or not. But if he's free and he's not doing Creed 4 right now, then I would say him because I think Channing Tatum is a big, broad dude. I think it would be really cool to have in terms of showing the difference between these characters in stature. Get a really skinny, athletic John. If you're going with someone big and muscular like Channing Tatum, that's just my thought. I feel like that's a cool balance to have. That's all.
Right. Then what about, so I know people have done this many times before, and in terms of fan casting, John David Washington. Did you mention? You might have mentioned John David
I
Washington.
think I did. I mentioned John David Washington. He would be. I was thinking, who was that other name? That I think he would be a good name. I would want someone who's athletically toned. Michael B. Jordan fits that perfect toned body that I would think of in terms of that. But yeah, John David Washington could be good too. He's great, and he was already co-starring with, Batman. So he
well, not the DCU Batman, but
a Batman with a Batman director. He's almost there anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, and
but
if you go,
I think
you can pull off a detective, somebody who he has the acting chops to ground them. Something like this, where it's meant to be this.
He's not his dad, but he's still a very good actor. So but that's a major leap. But you know what? Good for him. He still managed to create his own legacy. So good for him in that. But I think he's another really good actor for that. I think he's done a lot and enough credits to okay, give him a big franchise now if he's into it. Obviously, if he's not into it, then don't force him. But I think he would. Yeah, him, Michael B. Jordan would be good, and John Boyega I think would be really good too. In terms of get someone who's stature opposite from Channing Tatum. If we're talking about Channing Tatum specifically, but
yeah, and I mean, and Jay Kelly, you asked the question, but you just gave us a suggestion too. What about Aaron Pierre? Do you know who? I don't know who Aaron Pierre.
No, I know Aaron Pierre. He was on Krypton. He
was he?
Yeah, he was. He is okay. This is gonna be a weird thing to say, but he has the most glowing skin I have ever seen on a man, ever. He just has he just has this face of he almost doesn't look real. He looks like a generated image of a guy. A computer's okay, just give us a picture of a beautiful man, and this is who comes out. It's an almost. I hate to sound mean, but it's almost like an AI generated image of a beautiful person. Just the eyes, his facial structure. That's who is. The thing is, he's a good actor. I haven't seen, again, I've only seen Krypton, so I don't know if he totally has the chops. He was good on that show, but it's been a while since I've watched it. But yeah, I mean, sure, why not? Again, he kind of has that, again, stature that you're looking for, and If
And he's flying under the radar, but he, of course, like you said, he has got a pass with DC.
yeah.
So
So I
you
think
could, yeah,
like I would be open to it. It's not like, oh yeah, let's do fucking, I don't know, who's a really terrible actor. Like, oh yeah, um like, I don't know, name a
I think
really terrible,
you can
like
let's
Pauly
hold on.
Shore. Yeah, have him as Green. It's like it's nothing like that. Like
Yeah,
it's
no, let's not
it's
go
like,
down that road.
yeah,
Um,
I think, yeah, he could probably pull it
yeah.
off.
But okay, well, getting back to the whole, Nexus Point News article that prompted
Mhm.
this conversation, the trust me, bro. We talked to
Yeah,
the people over at
trust me,
DC, bro.
we spoke to
It's
James Gunn directly
Gunn
about all
himself.
of this. It's
Yeah,
totally real.
Channing Tatum's at the top of the list, bro. Trust me, bro.
I
It's
talked to
it's
him
great.
personally, trust me.
Personally, it's just, and he whispered it into my ears, bro. Like, come on. I think the one thing out of this whole article that makes sense to me is that they will start filming this at the beginning of next year. I mean, they might start filming it towards the end of this year, depending on how the casting process goes, how far along
Yeah,
they are with the screenwriting process for each of the episodes. It's going to be a limited series, most likely. We're probably not getting more than 8 episodes, considering that they're going to likely be bringing at least one A-list cast member, and
yeah,
possibly more. So you're looking at a series that's going to be pretty expensive on a per episode basis. So they want to make it something that's has a manageable budget. I mean, and also James Gunn is going to be very careful to bring in somebody who he can easily see transitioning into the movies, like Frank Grillo, who's going to be in Superman playing Rick Flag Sr. Then he's going to be in Peacemaker season 2. Supposedly now with Joel Kinnaman's Rick Flag returning. I don't know how that's going to happen. Maybe we'll talk about that later. And then of course he's going to be in Creature Commandos as well. So I think the opportunity to kind of play the character across multiple different mediums would certainly appeal to somebody like maybe a Channing Tatum, or whether it's Glenn Powell, or maybe even a Brad Pitt. Who knows? I mean, Brad Pitt is kind of doing his own thing these days, and he certainly has no need to be a part of a franchise to um, earn his fair share at the box office. So we'll get into it again when we get any more reporting, anything more concrete. But hey, this was a trust me, bro, kind of a report. I know that the Nexus Point News had something similar the other day about how Kumail Nanjiani is playing Booster Gold. Trust me, bro. We talked to Jolamer Duenya. Trust me, bro.
yeah.
Um,
Trust me, bro. We totally talked to him. We have no evidence to
so
back this up, but we totally talked to him,
yeah,
and we're like, yeah,
exactly. Caleb
definitely.
suggests Ryan Reynolds will be back as Hal Jordan. That would be epic if that
He
did
would,
happen.
yeah, like, he would slit
Um,
his wrists before he would come back as Hal Jordan.
which
Like,
I'm pretty sure he said exactly. I'm sure you're quoting him in
he
some way,
said,
but right?
like,
He's
he said, I
mentioned
would
this.
rather
Yeah,
watch a
yeah.
24-hour marathon of Paw Patrol than ever
Paw
watch
Patrol.
Green Lantern
Which,
again.
dude, Paw Patrol is a great show. Like, stop bragging on Paw Patrol, man. Come on, it's better
Yeah,
than the
and you
Green
know what?
Lantern movie you were in.
Honestly,
I'm
the
just
thing is,
kidding.
I
It's
get,
I don't
because he had
know.
a
It's like
really
a
bad experience with Green Lantern, like a personally bad experience, like
yeah.
kind of like how David Fincher disowned Alien 3. Like, even if
Hmm.
it was like a good movie, and I believe Alien 3 is a good movie, he would never, because he was just so
Yeah.
fucking innately
Miserable.
miserable on that
Yeah.
shoot. And so was Ryan Reynolds. Like, he was miserable on that
Right.
movie. So it's understandable why he shits on it
Hey,
so much.
but hey,
Even
he
though it's
met the
not that
love of his
bad.
life, though.
He did,
So
but like, I heard there was
yeah,
a lot of like bumping
right.
heads between
Butting heads.
producers and the
Yeah,
director. The director, Martin Campbell, very good director, but he was acting like an ass on that movie.
yeah,
So I get it. So that's
yeah,
why I'm like, all right, this is his thing. Just leave it
yeah.
be.
Dude, eventually, when they do the DC equivalent of Deadpool and Wolverine, I want to see Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern come back.
He will never.
That'd be interesting.
He will
But hey,
never.
let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, so now we're gonna get back to that whole lanterns topic again in the future when we get any more concrete news. Certainly, when we get a little more than a trust me, bro. I mean, if we spent 25 minutes or like half an hour talking about it when it's just a trust me, bro situation, I'm sure we can do
Yeah.
better
Get that
when
salt
there's
lick
actual
ready.
news.
That grain of salt.
Uh, exactly. Now, what you don't need a grain of salt to judge and talk about is the Superman film, which has officially wrapped production. We know this because James Gunn dropped that big piece of news on us yesterday. We were about to go live on the Also Curious show, and here comes James Gunn posting, "Hey, man," and that's a wrap. And we were like, "Oh." It's the same day that Fantastic Four starts filming, and James Gunn is out there like basically saying that, "Hey, we're wrapped." We are wrapped filming on Superman. Today he posted something about like, hey, today is the 10-year anniversary of Guardians of the Galaxy being released in Europe, and he's just reveling in how he remembers going on a tour all across the continent back 10 years ago with Chris Pratt, Batista, and of course all the other cast members. But the big news was that, hey, Superman has now wrapped, and this movie is now officially in post production. And you know, whenever a movie wraps production, it's very common. And even when if you get wrapped out before the film wraps, like I think Maria Gabriela de Faria, who's playing the engineer, and even Nicholas Hoult, who's playing Lex Luthor, both of them got wrapped a few days before the movie officially finished filming. So I think when
Mhm.
you walk off the set, the cast and the crew usually they get some kind of gift, something to essentially send them off and like something to remember the experience by. And so it looks like that's exactly what happened here as well. Now, John, David Cornsweet posted something on his social media. Basically, the best way I can describe it is he eats a brownie, kind of just poking fun at the idea he doesn't have to stay in Superman shape anymore, which I thought was hilarious. But the really big thing that we got is this trading card essentially,
Mm.
that it looks like the whole cast of the movie and the crew on the film got, which kind of shows David Cornsweet Superman and what I thought was a pretty cool like setting. Like it's the first time we kind
Yeah.
of see him in that way because obviously everything we've seen is either it's that one official image where he's putting his boots on, or it's something from behind the scenes where you're not necessarily seeing the suit in a way that it's going to end up looking like on camera. But this is, I guess, officially now the second photo of David Cornsweet Superman,
Yeah.
and you're seeing the curl, the iconic curl. You're seeing the suit, and I think it's starting to look. It looks clean. It's not like the one with battle damage
Yeah,
from
but
the
it
other
looks
official photo.
dark. It looks so dark.
Well, but
Maybe it's
I
the
put that
lighting.
on the idea that, hey, this is a photo of a card. I'm sure the lighting is going to translate differently when you actually see the real thing. But what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Like I was looking at this card and I'm like, okay, we see the new DC logo, which clearly they've spent a good amount of time working on kind of setting it
Yeah.
up to be the new thing everywhere on social media, on print and digital, on the merch. This didn't happen overnight that James Gunn decided to just post, hey, this was the logo we wanted. They clearly spent a long time kind of revving it up in time for Comic-Con to make it official. But
Mhm.
obviously you have that logo down there. You've got the name Superman. It's like I said, it's like a trading card. And at the very top, you've got Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Now, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, isn't that like also a thing that Avengers use?
Yeah,
Like
you could
that,
see Joe LaBallister on the
yeah.
side saying, "Earth's mightiest heroes. That's the Avengers. Superman's is truth, justice, and the American way." I refuse to say the other one, but yeah, Earth. I was looking at this image and I'm like, okay, it looks weird. The text on top, yeah, you can read it, but it's very like messed up. So I'm like, the reason I didn't mention this was I didn't want to send it to you because it looks almost AI generated. I don't know if this
Mhm.
is like real or not. I don't know if this like came from like an official source. Because the Earth Mightiest Heroes, again, that's not really a DC thing, and it looks
Exactly.
like warped. So I don't know if
Yeah.
this is like official or not. It doesn't look official, but I
Yeah.
mean, and it's like it's so funny because it's like behind him again the image looks a little weird, like the bricks like look weird, and then it's like out of all the things to have as a background for Superman, it's like a house. Like if this
Uh-huh.
is like a trading card, whether it's for the cast and crew or it's like actually like a prop from the movie, why the fuck would you have it as a house?
You know what I
Like
will
why would
say
it
is
be in like space
like
or
this
like the American flag or like, in front of like the Daily Planet because Lois Lane interviews Superman a lot. So it's like it's just kind of like
there is another version of this photo, which I think the version we were looking at just now was a little more photoshopped or some filter applied. This is the other
yeah,
version, which is apparently signed by David Cornsweet himself. It looks
yeah.
a little bit different. It just looks like maybe it's his house in Smallville and you got a big American flag in the background somewhere or something. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
but why would he show off his own house? He doesn't want to know people's secret
that's
identity.
true. It's is this wait, hold on. Somebody posted this. Is this meant to be like Oh, look at this. This is actually from way back in the day, from like the 90s.
All right, I
So
guess that makes sense.
I mean, we talk about it all the time that, comic book companies, DC and Marvel specifically, of course, they've been ripping each other off for years.
Oh,
So I can easily see
yeah,
Earth's Mightiest Heroes being a thing that both use, and I guess in the cultural zeitgeist today be associated with Marvel. But of course, we know the original Captain Marvel was Shazam, and then there was a whole thing and the legal battle, and eventually Marvel ended up with the rights, so now we call him Shazam. So there's many instances of stuff like that out there. Um, but yeah, I mean, hey, it's to me this looks it looks fun. It's something fun to hold on to. You're not gonna have access to something like this if you weren't on the movie. And if you were on the
yeah,
movie and down the road, you happen to be in need of a cash infusion for whatever reason, and like you
yeah.
can, I'm sure you can auction this off for a pretty penny.
Oh,
So
yeah.
um
I mean, people would
yeah.
definitely pay big money because, like, one thing I wanted to mention was the other day when it was revealed that the first like Superman movie merch was
Hmm.
dropped. Like, they sold out of everything in minutes.
In
In
minutes.
minutes, like
God.
it was a shirt and a hat, and they were like, I
Right.
wouldn't say they were like super expensive, but like for at least movie merch, they were like one was, I think the shirt was like $35 and the hat was like $40, something like that, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even to get the shirt, it was to pre-order the shirt. So like it was just pre-orders, and
Hmm.
all of them sold out in like, I think maybe an hour. Maybe I saw minutes, but that might be over exaggerated. It was like in like an hour, maybe two, where they sold out of
Yeah.
everything. So it's
I
like
mean, then they
the
also had some
excitement for this is
hanging.
real,
Yeah.
man. It is.
Yeah.
I know people, Snyder Bros, don't want to say that because it's like, oh yeah, who's excited for a new Superman movie? But it's like people are clearly excited because they made the merch store sell out in an hour. So there's that.
It was, yeah, I remember, I think James Gunn posted about it, and then there was a bunch of other accounts that talked about it as well. It was definitely interesting to see just the demand. I mean, they had a few on a rack at Comic-Con, right? And those ones sold out like hotcakes. So
Hmm.
it's people want it. I mean, and like you said, it's back ordered now, right? Like on the website, you can't really, as far as I could tell. I mean, I think you had a link to this, but we'll try to get our hands on that. We'll try to get some merchandise for ourselves. Of course, I love the logo. It's so classic. It's very iconic. It's something that I think will do well for the DC brand over time. Um, and yeah, Manolo, I think the DC merch was a low key success. It's just, again, is that on the street kind of marketing, right? Like I think James Gunn has been very clever in some ways. I mean, I think early on we were like, is he oversharing? Does he need to address every fan rumor? But stuff like this goes to show you that he knows what he's doing with the kind of boots on the ground sort of marketing that will help create that buzz around the franchise even before the first movie comes out. Yeah. uh, Caleb, Snyder fans, there's good ones, there's bad ones, as in every fan base. But yeah, what I was gonna say is I'm just getting more and more excited every time I see something from this film. Like, when we got the news that, hey, they're wrapped, it just, I was speechless for a good minute. I'm like, wait, like they're done. Like this thing is now real. Like this movie is done. They're done filming, and now they're gonna go into post production. They might have reshoots. We know they have permits to continue shooting in the Ohio area if they need to go back for reshoots all the way through August. So that's probably built into their process and their timeline. But hey, it looks like the movie is finally done. The crew got their wrap gift. And Dirt Cornsweat is finally getting into some brownies so that he doesn't have to keep up appearances to be
Yeah,
super
it
jacked
reminds I
for
remember it reminded me of
Superman.
the story where
Yeah,
Henry Cavill like got down to like 3% body fat
that's
for like his
insane.
shirt, which is like, to all the actors out there, please don't do that.
Hmm.
But he did that for all the shirtless scenes, and then I think like once they got all the shirtless scenes done, Zack Snyder gave him like a tub of ice cream and like I think like a pizza, and he's like, "Here,
Dude,
eat this."
smash it. Just smash that like pizza and tub of ice cream. Yeah, you gotta like eat good once you're done because like you had to. basically be a little dehydrated to film those shirtless
Yeah,
scenes, right?
because you
Because
have to
get
get rid
the
of water
definition.
weight, you have to dehydrate yourself, which is,
It's just
again, I say this,
crazy.
please don't do that. If you're
Though,
an
don't
actor, please
yeah,
don't do
it's
that. If you're a person, don't do that.
don't do that.
Please just
It's not necessary. That's what we have VFX for, you know. Like, and if there's done well enough, nobody will know. So, but hey, Lenny had a quick question. We can address this in more detail later in the week. I think Friday might be a good time to do this because tomorrow we're reviewing Kite Man Hell Yeah, the latest episode. But yeah, what are you? I mean, I guess maybe quick thoughts, a couple of sentences, maybe. What are your thoughts about Paradise Lost and Waller? I know Paradise Lost is something that it's a show that quite frankly is lost somewhere because we don't really know what's going on with it. James Gunn says it's still in development, but it's not been greenlit because they don't have any scripts that are ready to go. Waller, on the other hand, seems to have been moving forward pretty swiftly. We don't have a ton of updates regarding when the release date, but it does look like they have enough to like put into production or be preparing to go into production, whereas Paradise Lost is still in the concepting stage. What
yeah.
are your thoughts about those two shows, and do you, how much of impact they might have on the DCU in the early goings?
Um, I hope Waller isn't derivative of Creature Commandos or Peacemaker, since it's kind of like that vibe. I don't know what they're gonna do because it's confirmed, like with at least with Creature Commandos, that like she's not in prison. So, because I know that people were commenting on that after the events of Peacemaker season 1.
Right.
So it seems like she's not, unless Creature Commandos takes place. I don't know what the fucking. I don't know what the continuity is at this point, and he's not revealing it right now either. So I think Waller is
Wait,
like
hold on. Isn't Waller in Creature Commando? You just mentioned that, right? Like
she's in
she's
Creature Command. I mean, she was in the trailer, like, and she was heading Task Force N.
yeah.
So, she has
Okay.
that, and then she's gonna probably appear in Peacemaker. She's definitely gonna, and then obviously she's gonna fucking be in her own show. So with
Mm-hmm.
Waller, I really don't know what to expect. I feel like it'll be like a Black Ops sort of like checkmate kind of show.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that's just like the vibe I have. Like it'll probably be like a kind of like a Black Ops show, like and like obviously less comedic and more like oh like the more serious side of this character, like why she is the Wall. So
Yeah.
something like that. And then Paradise Lost, I want it to be like super high fantasy. Like I want it to be like Excalibur levels of high fantasy, like something
Yeah.
ridiculous. I mean, without the incest rape, that would be great. But I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, Excalibur is still a great movie. But, like, don't have that part. But just Paradise Lost, like I feel like I don't want it to just be another Game of Thrones because I know that's how it was described. But like I'll be, like conceptually that can change. That was just like maybe his way of pitching it, like, oh, people know Game of Thrones. Okay, so like this is the next best thing. Like, okay, this is the only thing I could really compare it to. But I really want it to really go high fantasy because we don't really have that in media. I feel like media, it's like they very much downplay the fantasy. I want like sword and sorcery 80s fucking like Conan and what was it, like Kroll or something like that, like just like ridiculous, like Excalibur shit like that. Like I want it to be like highest of fantasies and just like to almost a ridiculous point showcasing like the both good and bad of like the Amazons, especially if they're going with the new 52 interpretation. I hope they don't, but like there is some new 52 influence throughout this. So like, all right, I get it. And so that's how I would love for it to go. Like I want it to like if this is going to be more fantastical, like we've already seen the Superman that's like that fantastical idea, and then we're probably already getting like a fantastical Batman. We're getting like fantastical characters like Supergirl and Swamp Thing. So Paradise Lost, I just don't want it to be like a politic show like House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, where it's just like people talking and then oh look, a dragon. It's like that's boring. That's why I don't watch those shows. So I would want it to like be like Excalibur, like something like that, where it's just like so like have her great. Like maybe this is like an entire like flashback sequence, where it's like oh like maybe it's like Hippolyta telling child Diana about like, oh, the olden days, blah blah. I even don't really mind Wonder Woman 84. It's very flawed and not great, but like I liked the more like I like the 80s elements, and I like how Wonder Woman didn't use a sword and shield. I always preferred that. I always preferred Wonder Woman just having the lasso of truth because she's so good of a fighter that like a sword and shield would impede her ability to like fight melee like with her hands. Just my thought, but I feel like Amazon stuff is like could be really interesting, and I really hope they dig deep into that. And that it's just not, it's just like oh, Game of Thrones knockoff. That's just boring, and it's just like I know it's popular, and I know like Warner Brothers owns the rights to that, but I just really want it to go high fantasy because I feel like we don't get a lot of that nowadays, and I think people would be really into that. But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it would be something very different, right? Like it's as opposed to what we have gotten certainly from those Wonder Woman movies already, which were, oh yeah, Cersei being a creature commanders, it does get yeah, yeah, that's true. I think it would be fun to see that. And obviously they've cast actors who are meant to then come into the live action space and continue playing those same characters. Um, oh, O'Shea is asking if you think James Gunn's Wonder Woman will probably have like a swimsuit style suit outfit, like in the JLU series, or I mean,
The
you know,
only way I could
I
see
don't
them
see any
doing the
yeah,
swimsuit outfit is to differentiate it from the DCEU, but I feel like the skirt is just very iconic.
yeah.
So I don't think they'll do that. And then I know
It's not yeah.
the new 52 had like sleeves kind of and then like pants, which it just looked boring. Like it just looks like every other like superhero outfit. Like the swimsuit style and skirt are just I don't know. They're iconic, and two, I just feel like that's just and plus it's like Wonder Woman, she's using her legs a lot. You would think that she would
Mhm.
want like freedom with her legs to like beat
Yeah.
people up. So I don't know, just don't have pants. Like the swimsuit or the skirt, I just feel like I know that people say, "Oh, it's just because, like male gaze and like, oh, we just want to see women naked, blah blah." It's not that. One, she's an exceptional fighter. She needs freedom to do what she needs to do to like beat people up. And then two, I think it's just like it's just boring. Like, oh, it's just she looks like every other superhero if she's just like in a pantsuit, and it's just like, all right, just give her some like
I
uniqueness.
yeah,
Like,
but here's the thing. The good thing about this DCU is going to be if they're gonna do this Paradise Lost series, which they are, as long as until they say they're not. Um, they can do something where they have the ability to show how the look of the Amazons has evolved over time. Like they don't need
mhm,
to look the same as they did like thousands of years ago. You could see how, and then you could have different costumes. Even the Wonder Woman costume that we saw from the first Wonder Woman movie to the second one in 1984, it evolved a little bit. Like it wasn't quite the same thing. It was largely the same thing, but I mean, from the way the colors were portrayed, it was a little bit different. I think the lasso of truth like was used a lot more in the second movie than it was in the first one. There's elements you can tackle. I think it's and then of course they had different costumes for when they were on the island. um I wouldn't mind seeing something that's a little more of that classic one, kind of similar to the DCEU, because I think the look of that costume was, pretty quintessential to what the character has
mhm,
historically been. But they can also go with something that's a little bit different. Like there's no reason to also then switch it up a little bit. Like you can start
yeah,
her off at something and then have her get a different
give
costume.
her a new
Obviously,
one. Yeah,
she had
like how
multiple
in
costumes in
how in
1984,
the
right?
first
So,
film, like the suit was like very dark and like kind of
right.
maroon, and
It was
but then
World
in the
War One,
sequel it was like red, like
Yeah.
royal blue, and like
It's
that
the
kind of thing. So
80s.
yeah, always
So,
evolve the suit. Like give her like
right,
the swimsuit suit in the first Wonder Woman movie, and then in the sequel you could give her the skirt, and
right.
then yeah, just like constantly evolve those things because I think that would be
Yeah,
really good. But yeah, I think again, like really go into like the magical sword and
right,
sorcery sort of thing. I mean, Cersei is a good like stepping stone in terms of that side, in terms of mysticism in the DCU, and in terms of gods and god adjacent characters that like
right.
with mythology.
Mhm.
I think that's like a really good. I think that was a smart move from Creature Commandos because it's showing two very different sides of the DCU. It's showing the it's showing the it's showing the very earthbound side. It's kind of showing a little bit of the horror side as well, with these like
Mhm.
monsters like Frankenstein and the Bride and like Dr. Phosphorus and all these other characters. And then as well showing the history a little bit, like GI Robot is like an older character. Like,
Mhm.
it has been many years since I finally can put Nazis back in their graves, or whatever the hell he said. Send Nazis back to hell. Like, that was a great line. But played by Sean Gunn, by the way.
Mhm.
Sean Gunn handling a gun. Anyway, but and then as
So
well as
meta.
showing like the mystical side. Like, I
Mhm.
believe I this is how I view like like not necessarily specifically DC Comics, but like I guess all comics. It's kind of like the triangle of like life. I view it as like Earth based things, magic, and cosmic. That is like the binding force of like DC, I think, because Earth you can like attribute that to like many things where it's like street level
Right.
science, horror. A lot of stuff is like the Earth realm. Then you have magic, which is like Wonder Woman stuff, Greek gods, sorcery, like historic stuff. And then you have cosmic, you have aliens, and then, like Superman, and then, like Fourth World, which is like beyond like aliens and like all that. So I feel like that's like kind of the binding force. And I feel like you're knocking two very important parts with Creature
Mhm.
Commandos, Earth and magic, and then with Superman you're getting both cosmic and Earth based. So I feel like you're getting all three of those to varying degrees between these first two projects of the DCU. But that's
Yeah.
just however you view it is whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if people can see like the my thought process, but that's how I viewed it. When I was building my own DCEU, I was like, that's how I imagined it.
I think James Gunn will look at it as a combination of those elements, but like maybe more of a. I think you don't have to necessarily segment it out because then you're sort of limiting yourself a little bit in some ways. Like why have a Green Lantern show that has to stay solely on Earth? They can go into space if they wanted to.
Yeah, they can
It
go
could
into
be
space,
Earth
but I feel like
based,
that's
but
a budget thing than a
oh yeah, well,
storytelling
I,
thing.
I s- I hear you, but like when a show has a budget of $20 million per episode, like it doesn't matter if your setting in the show is in space or if it's in a industrial warehouse. Like they've got the money to pull it off. It's not like so. I think it's possible, but it's also going to be something that's interesting to follow and see how it evolves. It's definitely going to be interesting to see just how much Creature Commandos plays into the story of Superman. I know that, or we know that
Mhm.
Rick Flag Senior, of course, Frank Grillo is going to move across. So it'll be fun to see just how the pieces tie together, just how consequential it is. Where is Waller's place? Like we talked about, Amanda Waller. Is she just literally in the shadows? How much of what we know about her from the DCU is indeed true in the in the DCEU is true in the DCU. Sorry, confusing my universes. Um, and yeah, Lenny Constantine. By the way, Keanu Reeves did say that he's waiting for a script somewhere. That second Constantine movie is still being worked on. Zatanna,
Mhm.
Deadman, and Ms. Doctor Fate. Yeah, magic. There will be plenty of magic in the DCU. Don't worry about it. And by the way, guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button. We do appreciate that. That really helps us out. And if you haven't subscribed, then hit the subscribe button because that way you'll know when we have the latest videos out and hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. So as we keep going here, we still have lots to talk about. Now, of course, we've been talking about all manner of DCU projects, but there is this Batman project that's just not a part of the
Mhm.
DCU. It's Batman Cape Crusader. It's coming out on Amazon Prime tomorrow, August 1st. So if you're watching us live, then this show is literally going to be dropping in less than 24 hours. If you're not watching us live, then you might have it might already be out. Now, we have had some footage of the show already out with a couple of trailers in the past, and so we've looked into like, hey, what is the look of the show going to be? What is the costume going to look like? We've even heard the voice of Batman being voiced by Hamish Linklater, of course, who was of Legion fame, and he's done a number of other projects. He's no Kevin Conroy, but nobody can be, but he's certainly doing a pretty good job from the trailers that I've seen. Now, this past week and over the course of Comic-Con weekend, we got an extended sneak peek at the show, and we got a bit of like a scene of the show from one of the first episodes, I believe. And then we also got the intro for the show. So what I wanted to do was just kind of spend a little bit of time and let's kind of dive into it and let's talk about the look and feel of the intro, and then of course what you think about the scene that got released on YouTube. I believe it was. You can find it on Amazon Prime's YouTube channel, and you can then also see it on DC's YouTube channel. What I did find interesting is like the marketing is still using the DC logo that is now, I guess, the old DC logo, because all the branding has updated, but maybe those trailers weren't quite made before that change happened.
Right.
Um, with that said, John, what are your thoughts on the intro for this show? It's going to be releasing tomorrow. It looks like they're dropping all the episodes
Yes.
at once. So, will you be skipping the intro every time, or are you going to sit there and revel in its
Depends
greatness?
how good it is. Only like kind of skim through it, like getting these
Yeah.
images, but it looks fucking cool. So like honestly, it's like really going into like that like 20s, 30s, 40s aesthetic. So I think it looks great, and like it looks like it has like that grainy like film
Mm-hmm.
reel kind of vibe to it. So I really like that. You're getting the vibe of the show, and um I mean I really like the logo as well. And that's one of the things that I think the show will shine is the animation. The animation looks good. I still wish he had the purple gloves, but that's just my opinion. um but yeah, the opening will look good. It looks good, and I usually I'm a very impatient guy, especially if I'm binging something. I'll
Yeah.
probably be skipping the intro because I
Mm-hmm.
gotta binge all those episodes. So I'm like, okay, I gotta watch everything. Okay, gotta go to the next thing. Skip the intro. The only intros I never skip unless it's by accident or if I am like really in a rush. Then is Doctor Who and Dark. Those were
Mm-hmm.
the only one, and Dexter. I don't think I ever skipped a Dexter intro.
Yeah.
Dexter, one of the most underrated intros, never changed throughout its 8 years. Fucking on point every time. That got a little tidbit at Comic Con as well. Um, but yeah, underrated intro. But like sometimes if I'm like binging something and especially if it's a long intro, like this seems like a 1 to 2 minute intro. I'm like, okay, I gotta get through this to watch the episode, so
Yeah.
let me just skip it for now.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I watched it a few times, and I'll be honest with you, it's not Batman the animated series. It's not like iconic. It doesn't have that, because Batman the animated series largely took the score from the 1989 Batman movie with Michael
Hmm.
Keaton and just did a version of that, right? Like it's a less
Yeah.
theatrical version, but very much based on that. It had this high energy pace and kind of like the cuts move to the beat of the music, and it really was great for the time, but it also feels timeless today. This feels very noir. Like, the
Hmm.
word is literally embodies the word noir, from the artwork to like most of the shots are in slow mo, and like they're more like moving portraits rather than like actual shots. Then you kind of cut between shots like this where you're just sort of seeing Batman meandering in the back. There's not a ton of motion, but the camera is sort of panning across the scene. So it's really just giving you a sense of like it's trying to put you in the mindset that you're about to watch this very film noir kind of like animated show, which, to be quite frank, there's not many out there that look like this, that sort of dive into that aesthetic. But then you kind of have that interspersed with shots like this where guns firing off. It definitely feels like very similar to Batman the animated series, but again, going for more of that, like you said, that 20s, like that noir look. The music didn't quite impress me because the music is much more slow paced, and it's like more methodical. It's sort of like one of those
Yeah,
things
like
where if
that
you're used to.
detective film noir style, I'd
Exactly.
imagine.
It to me, like, I'm sure I can grow. It will grow on me because it's similar. Like my reaction to it is similar to like when the Batman started more doing his marketing, and I was like, this is so different. Like I don't know what to like. It was a bit of a shock to the system, but I'm willing to give it some time to kind of like maybe develop in a nice sense of romanticism about it, because who knows, like ultimately the intro to a bad show people tend to forget. Whereas if you like the show, you will the intro will grow on you, because especially if you don't skip it every time, over time you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this listening to the intro reminds me of the time that I was watching this show. Kind of like every time I put on Batman the animated series intro, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm a kid again. Or like Batman Beyond, it's like, or the 90s Spider-Man TV show, like, or the X-Men TV series. It's you kind of get sent back in time to that nostalgia. I think this show has a ways to go to kind of establish that connection with its audiences, but if anything, the intro does give you a very, very good preview of what is to come from the show itself. And of course, you've got all the
Very
names
clear
like you
cut,
know,
sort of.
yeah, exactly. Thematically it fits the description, and I think ultimately, if you were
Yeah,
to
and
watch the show,
I
then
like it. I just
it's
watched
a
it,
good
so I was
enjoyable
like,
time.
but yeah, I think it's I don't know if I'd skip it, but like, yeah, it definitely gets the vibe, and it gets, this is what you're getting in for, which is, I feel like, what a good intro does. I feel like not a lot of shows have intros anymore. It's just like a music sting and then the title, and then like that's it. I'm like, that's boring. I want to see an intro. Even I try not to skip intros because intros are usually really fun, but again, usually I'm very impatient, but that's on me. That's not on them. I usually try to watch all the intros, but like, yeah, I think intros are fun, and I feel like more shows need to have them. But again, there is the impatience that a lot of people have, so like, I get it. But give us more than a fucking music sting. Get
It,
out of here with that,
it's
and a
yeah,
title. Come on.
it's got a more subtle instrumentation to it than what we are used to with like the Batman the Animated Series, Batman Brave and the Bold, and Batman Beyond certainly. But hey, look, this is the other clip. This is like a 3-minute clip you can find online on, I think on YouTube. It's on the Amazon Prime channel, as well as on the DC channel, where it kind of gives us a little, something to wet our whistles, as you would say, John. And
Mhm.
you get, Batman in the action. He's doing his detective work. He's detecting, and you get to listen to Hamish Linklater's voice, and you get to kind of see like what exactly this Batman sounds like, how he moves, and honestly, I think I felt the aura of Kevin Conroy's performance. But like I don't know if that will continue to be the case the more I watch it. But I think they've certainly done a good job of trying to emulate that sound, that look, that feel. Um, what did you think about this? Like, does this give you cause for concern? Are you more excited to see like this is the kind of thing we're gonna get from the show, where it's not just he's punching guys and getting into fights and stuff. He's doing more detective work, again similar to the Batman with Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves. And again, Matt Reeves is a part of the executive producing team here, so maybe
Yeah,
that kind of detective like led focus has something to do with that. But overall, what were your
yeah.
thoughts with this sequence?
Yeah, I thought it was it definitely has vibes of like
Yeah.
Batman Begins, swear to me, like,
Mhm.
like that
Swear to
whole
me.
sequence. It like
Yeah.
it definitely has that, him pulling on the rope and being upside
Swear to
down.
me.
And just kind
Yeah.
of, kind of like that. But
Mhm.
it's we're kind of going with like what I love about Batman sometimes is that like really buy into the idea of like, that famous line from the Justice League trailer, uh heard of you, didn't think you were real. And like, like that's like the kind of thing I want
Or
to
like,
like.
I'm real when
Batman
it's useful.
is like, or I'm real when it's useful. But like, even then, like, I love that idea of like, even if it's like a known Batman, people still almost don't fucking believe he's real because of like, just like he's that much of like creature of the night. Like that's such like a fucking cool concept to me. And I feel
Mhm.
like like some have done that, but like obviously that doesn't have to be the like sometimes you have different interpretations. Again, almost 90-year history of this character, do whatever you want. Like I will gladly accept Nolan, I will gladly accept Reeves, I will gladly accept Joel Schumacher. I won't gladly accept Tim Burton because fuck those movies. But I do like I like the sillier. I like Adam West. I like the everybody chill. Like that. I like the cheesy aspects. But if let's say if I'm like James Gunn's like, all right, Andy Muschietti quit. You have to follow like the guidelines of like, okay, Damian Wayne and like the Bat family, but like outside of that, you could do whatever the fuck you want. And I'm like, all right, bet. And then I will fucking do whatever I want. I would want Batman to be like a creature of the night, like a fucking demonic force almost to the criminal
Which,
underbelly of
dude,
Gotham.
I
I
think
just think
that's
that's so
I'm just
much
saying,
fucking cooler.
Yeah, to that end, like in Batman versus Superman, when you first get that Batman intro, I don't think I've seen a scarier, more macabre intro to Batman in
Well,
any
when you
like
have
live
the
action.
victims, when you have the
Yeah.
people that, like, are that Batman is saving be scared of
Mhm.
him, that shows.
Mhm.
And then, like, the rookie police officer, "I saw him. I saw
Yeah.
him," and he's like and it
Yeah.
was like, like, that's
Yeah.
just so
He's
like,
a
I will
menace.
one of the
Yeah.
few good
Yeah.
things about, like, that movie is, like, that idea of, like, Batman being like, "Is he
Mhm.
real?" And
Mhm.
so, I feel like that's, like, a really cool
Yeah.
idea. I feel like
I
we
think
need
they
to
kinda
double
jumped
down
the
on
gun
that
a
in the
little bit
future.
with exactly, like, with trying to get the Justice League movie up and running. I feel like they should have lived with like, they given Ben Affleck his own solo movie that and continue to kind of play into that. The myth of Batman, right? Like, is how real is he? Just how but yeah, I think that would be a good way to go about it. But hey, look, overall to me, I really think that the look and feel of the show so far they're speaking to me in terms of my sensibilities around the character and what I want to see out of him in a animated setting. So I guess yeah, we'll see what comes of it tomorrow. The show releases on Amazon Prime. If you guys are excited, let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the live chat. You know, as Manolo was letting us know, Caleb, Jay, you got Lenny. I think he went to bed. He was like, it's getting late. O'Shea, all of you guys joining us in the chat. I hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Nerd Vertito, you had a couple of weird comments earlier. We like you too, nerd. Hunter Iggy, you were asking some questions that I don't want to necessarily address on the show, but what we do want to address are your comments on the show. We do have a few of them. John picked them out. So, John, let's get into those, shall we? We did have a lot of conversation about Deadpool, Wolverine, and the MCU yesterday, and some of the comments are regarding that, and of course, then we have some DC related stuff as well. So let's dive into your comments, shall we? Here's the first comment from yesterday's Also Curious DCU Daily combo show. So my dream in orbit 9297, who seems to like always comment on every video. I don't know if you are able to watch us live, but I mean we're so glad that you're always interacting with us, and we love to hear from you. So
Mhm.
he was mentioning that it is a huge milestone to see the completion of principal photography for Superman. James Gunn seems to be working super efficiently. This is huge for the budget and for the VFX teams as they have a good amount of time to deliver a solid product. I'm very excited for the run up to this film. F4 starting production today is a sign of the machine that is Marvel. So a positive take. I thought this was a great way to kind of put it, and a way that we didn't necessarily do it on the show. And he continues to say, if they can hit the release window 2 weeks apart from Superman, having just started filming now, that would be impressive for a film of this scale. The fact that they had Fantastic Four material at Comic Con without having started filming is the MCU speed in action. And I think, that's a great way to put it. I mean, ultimately, people will judge the two movies based on the quality of their stories and characters and how they look and feel, and if they can deliver on the promise of the potential that both of these movies have. Now, my dream in orbit continued to say, I personally have more confidence in James Gunn than Matt Shackman, who's directing Fantastic Four, and of course James Gunn directing Superman. The DCU continues to emphasize quality first, and he likes that approach. What do you think about that comment there, John? Do you think that
I agree.
that
I
perspective there is
agree.
it's pretty level-headed? He's
Um,
not like fanboying out over one franchise over the other.
yeah, it just like
Um,
if we're just boiling it down to, and I was mentioning this the other day, um, it just like now you have a year of possible VFX work to do. Obviously, as we know,
yeah,
it's post production isn't just
right.
VFX work. It's sometimes it's reshoots, sometimes it's second unit photography, all that stuff. So obviously, it's not going to be just that, but still a lot of that is going to go for VFX. And I know, so it's the 11th. You have like a week into July, so I would say like you have like maybe like 10 months, boarding on
Mhm.
11 months of VFX work. Um, whatever of that is going to be VFX work. So I just think that that's like, especially with a guy who definitely did extremely VFX heavy movies with the Guardians movies. He's like,
He's
you
got
know what? Like,
experience.
even though
Yeah.
Superman won't be as heavy as those movies because he can actually film on Earth places. That's not just like the ending scene of Volume 3 where Star Lord goes down and finally meets his grandfather. Um, but but yeah, I think that that just shows like it, it does make me worried about Fantastic Four again. As I said, I don't want it to be bad because it's like Fantastic Four is like one of those like classic Marvel things that I feel like should be so easy to do, but like they just haven't done it properly yet. And I think if I liked the, clips we saw of that test footage, whatever it was. I liked that a lot, and I like most of the cast. I think it's weird to have Reed Richards have a beard and mustache. Like, at least
Yeah.
John Krasinski had, like, the full beard. Like, the Pedro Pascal look unshaven guy and then like mustache. It's like I love Pedro Pascal, great actor, but it's like I don't get that look. Like just either shave or grow it out. Don't have that weird in between. Like you're a guy like in puberty and can't fucking full grow a full beard. But I don't know. It's just weird for Reed Richards. Like I feel like Reed Richards is one of those guys, very clean shaven kind of guy. But Vanessa Kirby's rocking it. Joseph Quinn is rocking it. Aban Moss Backrack. Yeah, I still don't like him, but he. I think he had a. I think, and Matt Shackman, he's like a TV director. Like it just feels like one of those cases of like Marvel being like, okay, we're gonna have our fingers in the potato salad, and we're gonna kind of control everything you do because you don't have a real vision because you're just a TV guy. And yeah, he did do WandaVision, but it's like, yeah, WandaVision was it had like some really interesting experimental ideas, but I don't know. I still don't fully. So obviously these directors need that experience, but I feel like you need to kind of build up to like a big blockbuster than just like keys to a guy that did like two indie movies and then it's like here's the keys to a franchise. Like it happened with Colin Trevorrow. It happened with oh who was it? It happened with John Watts. It's happening with Shackman. It's happening with Alan Taylor was another one. It's happening with all these directors that haven't like built up that proper experience, and then they're like, okay, here's a Fantastic Four movie. Here's a Spider-Man movie. Here's Thor 2. It's like, okay, can we? Or Mark Webb is another great example. Here's Spider-Man again. Like, can we get directors who have at least a little bit more experience and then get these other directors to, work on themselves a little bit more so that they can, be more fleshed out? Because it just gives me the impression of like, oh, a TV director, he doesn't have like he's not like Sam Raimi with Doctor Strange 2, clearly a vision that was compromised. And it was very clear. Well, this was like, oh, Kevin Feige's just going to be all in on whatever he wants to do, and Shackman's going to almost be relegated to like ghost director to
I don't.
that
Yeah,
point. So that's the thing that's like in my head when I think about like, oh, it's just
I
a
don't.
guy from TV.
But like Matt Shackman is almost becoming his new right hand man, like James Gunn was, right? So I think that you will get more of his vision than maybe what we are thinking about here. I
Hopefully,
think it'll be
hopefully.
hopefully a good movie. I mean, they have to make a good movie. The stakes couldn't be higher. Like, come on. But yeah, I mean, Geek Legend making a couple of good points about VFX there in the chat. So let's keep on going here. We've got another comment. We've got a few more to go here. So John, this is from TF Collect 2690. Again, this has more to do with Deadpool Wolverine, but since we're on the topic of Marvel projects, and we love all our comic book movies, Marvel and DC alike. So I like the movie myself.
Indubitably.
Indubitably. It was funny. Did not expect it to do what it did at the box office, though. However, with that being said, I'm tired of this multiverse narrative. It's just mind numbing to me at this point. And now Robert Downey Jr. is Doctor Doom. This is complete trash. Will not pay to see it. I'll just wait for it to premiere on Disney Plus. This is just stupid.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, John, like we talked about this at length yesterday, and I think we got a good idea what your thoughts are. You didn't even go to see the movie because you're just protesting it on the grounds that it's completely ruining Logan's legacy. So, look, I'll just pose a bit of a different question. Do you think the fact that Marvel is still kind of pursuing, if anything, going deeper into this multiverse narrative, this multiverse saga, why do you think that that's actually going to give DC an upper hand because it's going to start out with a much simpler, easier to follow storyline, especially like Superman. You don't really need to watch anything. You can skip Creature Commandos even and still go into Superman and enjoy the movie. Whereas if you're gonna go watch Deadpool Wolverine, you need to get the references, you need to have been a fan or watched a lot of the old X-Men movies, the Fantastic Four movies from back in the Fox era. And then moving forward, like to get the true impact of Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doctor Doom, you need to know what he meant to the MCU as Iron Man. Like the longer this universe has continued to go on, especially now with the multiverse narrative, the more homework you have to do. Do you think that DC could, have a leg up on Marvel at this point because they are starting fresh, and you don't need to do all that homework to go enjoy a movie or TV show?
Hmm. I don't know. It just I don't know. I feel like I don't really have like a ton to say like when it comes to like new Marvel stuff. I don't know. It's hard because it's like I I'm always like conflicted when it comes to it because it's like 'cause I remember I was like really excited when like the Disney Plus shows were announced because it like gave us like it kind of like gave us like a comic book feel almost like you had like a big event movie and then like there's like a small comic book arc and then there's that would lead to another big event and that gives us like a very good like comic book thing but then it's like it's different because a comic book costs like $4 and then
Yeah,
like you have to pay for a million streaming services to like find this out and then
to follow
like
all the
reading a
stories. Yeah.
comic reading a comic is like what 20 minutes not even and
Mhm.
meanwhile like 10-15 minutes and then but watching an episode and doing that week per week per week is just like but I get the idea was like there but it like I feel like no it just so yeah that's kind of what I have but then it's just like yeah the simpler the better as long as you don't have to see like a trillion things that's because I think that's what really sped up superhero fatigue for a lot of people is that like sort of like oh you need to watch 15 shows to watch one movie it's like who wants to do that
Yeah.
oh you need to watch WandaVision to understand Doctor Strange 2 you need to watch Miss Marvel to understand the Marvels you need to do this and this to watch you need Falcon and the Winter Soldier to understand Captain America Brave New World you need to it's just like who like bro, I am 27. I graduated from school 6 years ago. I don't want fucking homework. I just want to watch and enjoy. I don't need homework. So, and it's not like totally necessary because my dad well, fun. I pre-ordered tickets for Doctor Strange 2 because I knew that was going to be like a big. Usually, I
Mhm.
never pre-order tickets because nobody's going to the theaters anymore.
Mhm.
But that one I pre-ordered because I'm like, this is going to be a big opening. So I was like, okay. And my buddy dropped out at the last minute. He's like, I had last minute plans. I'm like, okay, sure. So I invited my dad, and I'm like, all right. He's like, this dude never watches Marvel. Like I think has maybe seen a combined like 5 Marvel movies in his like
Mhm.
entire life. So and I'm like, okay, so I'm like trying to explain. He's like, bro, he's like, John, I don't care. Like if I understand it, I understand it. If I don't, I don't. It's at the end of the day, it's just a movie. And so
Mhm.
we were watching it, and I'm like, after it was over, I'm like, did you get it? He's like, yeah. The bad guy is doing a bad thing. The good guy has to stop him. Why do you need why are people complaining that you need to watch a TV show for this thing? You get it. It's there. Like, why
It's
are people
there.
complaining? So
Yeah,
that's like
it's
so
yeah.
like in theory, it's like, oh, you need to watch 10 TV shows, but at the end of the day, it's like, do you, So there's like whole it's a whole discussion. So I'm not gonna get into that like totally, but I feel like the simpler the better, even if like you have like 10 TV shows, it's not like really necessary. But even then, the stigma of like, okay, there's this thing that precurses that like, okay, maybe I don't need to watch it, but the fact that it's like, okay, the fact that they made it as a precursor is like, eh. So it's just like, hey, I want to watch a Superman movie. Let's watch a Superman movie. I want to go see Swamp Thing. Okay, cool. We're going to go see Swamp Thing. It's like, oh no, you need to watch this show. This show. It's like, nope, nope, that's it. But like, I feel like it's James Gunn is kind of like he's like, okay, what worked at Marvel, what didn't work at Marvel. Okay, I'm doing my own thing now. So, and he's like trying to
Yeah.
like make it different, make it work, and I feel like that's on the right path. I don't know
Yeah.
if that
I
was too much of a filibuster, but
but
I
I
tend
think
to
you
do
made a
that a
good.
lot.
Yeah, well, but it's a great example of somebody who isn't up to speed on these franchises and how what their experience looks like, and I think that's a good way to approach. I mean, like it's some for us fans, like we think about it in a lot more detail than the average moviegoer. But you need the average moviegoer to show up to these movies for them to be as successful as they are. Now, the next comment is from Pluto24. He mentioned that Deadpool and Wolverine was trash, in his opinion, or in their opinion, and we don't know if it's a he or she or a they. I'm sorry, I wanted it to be good, but it was mid at best. I agree 100% with Angelina on Reynolds was doing too much. I know Angelina was on the show yesterday, and she mentioned that, hey, quite simply, Ryan Reynolds is a little too quippy, and it almost, detracts from the movie at times. I would agree with you there. I think there's a point where like it's a bit I feel like the weight of the movie, like the story needs to kind of carry the weight of the movie, not the comedy and the one-liners being delivered by a particular character, especially not the lead character. I think that the first two Deadpool movies did a better job of balancing that out. The first one especially, but like I think by the time we get to this one, it's just a cameo fest tribute to the Fox X-Men universe, kind of like No Way Home was for. But even then, No Way Home, I think, of all of these movies that have been like cameo fest, like highlight clip shows, like parts of Avengers Endgame even felt like, No Way Home did it in the most meaningful way imaginable, and yet still managed to have those moments. But Deadpool and
Mhm,
Wolverine, I think it goes a little over the top with the humor aspect of it. But hey, you know what? If you're a fan of Deadpool comics, then it's still a good movie for you to watch. So hey,
mhm,
to each their own, right? Now, this is the last comment of the day, and we'll have more on the next show. But for today, this is the last one we want to go through. My Dream in Orbit again, continuing on as he watched the episode, he was commenting and letting us know his thoughts. So he said that, hey, I agree. The plot of Deadpool Wolverine was paper thin, but the characters and the moments are so fun that the movie is a Marvel Deadpool people pleaser. I really enjoyed it, but I do wish they would have developed Cassandra or had given her a better motivation. John, what are your
yes.
thoughts about just again another Marvel villain that seemed to kind of come and go without really much of a
Yeah, from the
reason for
plot I
existing?
read, it was just like, "She wants to do the bad things because she's bad." Yeah, and, like, that's it, like, that's the character, and then Paradox wants to take over the TVA because reasons, like, I don't know, it's just, like, it just seemed, like, very, like, paper thin. It's just, like, I feel like they were like, Deadpool and Wolverine, that's gonna sell the movie. It could be, like, 5 hours of Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds taking a shit, and people would have seen it, and it would have made $1 billion. So, like, it's literally just the title alone and the
Dude,
fact that
don't
there's, like,
don't don't
a
speak that
fight
into
sequence.
existence.
Write that down. There's, like, a fight it's just, like, Deadpool, Wolverine, they fight, that's all you need to know, and people are gonna fucking go see it. Like, you know, that's all you
Yeah.
need. So,
Yeah.
it just, like, it could have been, like, about nothing, and it was about nothing. It's
Hmm.
just it's care like, these 2 are carrying this movie on their shoulders, and that was the intention, that was the point. So, it's like, you give them a few cameos, you give them a few Fox, like,
Yeah.
swan song things, member berries, that kinda shit, and then boom, there we go.
Yeah. I mean, but like I do hope that a actress as talented as Emma Corrin, like for them to be kind of relegated to a one-off appearance as a villain that we might never get to see again. I do hope that like Cassandra, if a version of Cassandra comes back in future Marvel movies, whether it's in the reboot like Geek Ledger was suggesting, that they give her more of a motivation. Because even though we have seen and enjoyed lots of Marvel movies, including even like some of the ones that were a little more mid, like I think Christian Bale's, for example, his villain from Thor: Love and Thunder, um, potential, a lot of potential behind it, but ultimately forgettable. Even Thor: The Dark World, I think that had a I thought that was a good villain, Christopher Eccleston, another Doctor Who there. But we've kind of gotten used to Marvel villains, being there to sort of like prop up the hero and then sort of like be on their way. And yet, the ones that we remember the most are the ones that leave an impact and stick around with us in the long run. And those are, ones like Thanos. Those are ones like, Wanda Maximoff. Those are ones like You know, RDJ coming back as Doctor Doom. I bet a big part of the appeal has to do with the fact that he played Tony Stark, and they're gonna use that to their advantage. So, you know, I hope that a character like Cassandra, you know, does get her due down the road, maybe in a different iteration of the MCU. Maybe if they do a soft reboot after Secret Wars. But hey, guys, we're gonna see what happens. There's so much going on in the world of comics, both DC and Marvel. Of course, Superman has done all of its production. They've wrapped, and you know, David Cornsweet got to eat some brownies finally, and James Gunn can focus on other projects outside of just. Although he's still gonna be involved with, you know, the post production process, and I'm sure
Yeah,
we're gonna
I'm
get a
sure. But he's
trailer
also has
in his time,
Peacemaker and possibly
and
Booster
Creature
Gold
Commandos, Booster
and Creature
Gold, like it's
Commandos, and it's also
all over.
all that.
But David Cornsweet can rest easy knowing that, you know, he doesn't have to stay in that, you know, Superman shape. And not that he was in bad shape, you know, outside of that anyway, but he doesn't need to be dehydrated and have 3% body fat like Henry Cavill did once upon a
Yes.
time. But also, guys, tomorrow we will, you know, be talking about Kite Man Hell Yeah, episode 4. Come back and check that out. And of course, John is going to binge Batman Cape Crusader on Amazon Prime. Is releasing tomorrow, August 1st on Prime. If you have that, I believe it's all over the world. It's on Prime, so it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can check it out on Amazon Prime. And you know, they're dropping all the episodes at once, and then we will review that next week. But until tomorrow, John, it's been fantastic as always. Thanks to everybody who's, you know, shown up to the live show. Thanks for leaving your comments in the chat. Thanks for dropping by, hitting the like button. Thanks for subscribing. We will be back tomorrow with the Kite Man review. Any breaking news, whether it's from Superman, whether it's from Batman Cape Crusader, whether it's from Swamp Thing, maybe, you know, that's another project. It's got a director. Where's the script? We'll get to see. Hopefully we get some news from other DC projects now that, you know, one movie is wrapped. Maybe we'll get news on what's going into production next. I mean, Supergirl is on the horizon. So there's a lot to talk about in the days and weeks and months to come. But until next time, John, as always, it's been a pleasure. We will see you guys here on the next episode of DCU Daily. So go out there, watch something DC related, maybe Batman Cape Crusader, maybe Kite Man. Catch up on Kite Man before the next episode drops, like John will. And then, well, not catch up, but, you know, John will watch the next episode.
I'm watching that
You
episode.
haven't. Yeah, and if you
Watch
haven't
it.
watched, there's 4 episodes. That gives you like a couple of hours worth. So we'll see
Not
you tomorrow
even.
on the show.
That's like an hour and a half.
They're
Not
20,
even.
yeah,
It's like
they're like 20-minute
25-minute
episodes.
episodes. Like,
That's fair. See, that's not even like a long movie. Like that's like a short movie. Like you can go check it out. Like it's a great show. It's
Indeed.
hilarious.
Indeed.
And you know, we'll be back here talking about it tomorrow. Until then, as always, you know, hit the likes, hit the subscribe button, and Manolo, please hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. But we'll see you here on the show tomorrow on DC Daily. Have a good rest of your day, guys, and thanks, John, again. We'll be back in like less than 24 hours. We'll see you then.